November 2023, the most valuable startup in the world nearly destroyed itself and set $29 billion ablaze when the board fired the CEO by text message.
OpenAI is the most advanced and the most widely used AI platform in the world now.
Sam Altman, the powerful face of artificial intelligence and ChatGPT, suddenly fired on Friday as CEO of OpenAI.
Within 5 days, 700 of the 770 employees threatened to walk. The CEO was back in his chair by Tuesday, and the man who pulled the trigger was not only his co-founder, but a guy who once organized a company-wide burning of a giant wooden effigy representing malicious AI at a company retreat. Here's what nobody in the tech press was saying. This was not about two big egos that just couldn't get along. This was not about AI safety. This was two brilliant people who couldn't talk honestly with each other, didn't understand each other, and whose partnerships broke down. Welcome back to Founder Breakups, a series where I take the most famous co-founder splits in tech, figure out what actually went wrong, and tell you whether I think I could have saved them. As a co-founder conflict coach, I've worked with dozens of founding teams, and today I get brought in to help navigate and repair relationships when they are at their most precarious and at-risk states. Today's case, OpenAI, the most expensive co-founder breakup in history. And at the end, of course, my verdict from no chance to in the bag, could I have saved it? So stay tuned. Unless you have been living under a literal rock, you probably have heard of Sam Altman. He sold his first company at 22, Looped, ran Y Combinator as president, and then eventually co-founds OpenAI in 2015 with a couple of other folks, including Ilya, Greg Brockman, Elon Musk. He eventually becomes a CEO, raises hundreds of billions of dollars, and turns an AI research nonprofit into the defining company of our generation. By every conventional metric, he is one of the most successful people in Silicon Valley right now. Meanwhile, we've got Ilya Sutskever, one of the top 3 AI researchers alive. He spent years as Geoffrey Hinton's PhD student, co-built AlexNet in 2012, the paper that basically launched the modern deep learning era, and then joined OpenAI as chief scientist, and for years was the scientific soul of the company. Elon Musk himself said that Ilya was the linchpin of the whole founding of the company, and that he went back and forth for months before he committed. Here's why their pairing made sense. Sam brought the capital, the vision, the relationships, the narrative. He was a master at that. Meanwhile, Ilya brought the credibility, the research, the safety conscience. They were a great fit for each other. They needed each other. And for a while, that complementary dynamic was a core part of OpenAI's success for years and years and years, actually 2015, all the way up until about 2022. So what went wrong? The public story is that Ilya was super worried about AI safety, Sam was moving too fast, there was a philosophical split about the mission of the company, and sure, that might be important and that's probably true, but that is just the surface. If you dig deeper, you see that this is a story about trust, about a partner who felt used in a conflict that was probably avoidable if anyone was willing to have a real conversation, really a number of very real conversations a couple of years earlier. So let me tell you what I actually think happened based on everything that has been reported. I don't have any insider knowledge of what's going on, but I did take a look at Karen Howe's book, Empire of AI, which drew on over 250 interviews with people inside and outside of OpenAI. So when ChatGPT launched in late 2022, it changed everything. OpenAI went from a cautious research lab to a commercial rocket ship in about 90 days. I mean, it was the fastest consumer application to reach 100 million users in history. And Sam leaned in, sovereign wealth fund deals, a hardware project with Johnny Ive, fundraising rounds that made Microsoft's initial investment look like a little drop in the piggy bank. For Ilya, that acceleration was scary. But here's the thing, the core of his complaint wasn't really about speed, it was about honesty. The board didn't fire Sam for being reckless, for being irresponsible, for being incompetent. They fired him for being, in the words of the press release, not consistently candid. Because Ilya had spent roughly 1 full year, basically from the launch of ChatGPT, quietly building a 52-page memo. His big charge was that there was a consistent pattern of lying, of turning executives against one another, and deliberately creating a chaotic environment where no one had the full picture. And if that doesn't sound bad enough, here is the detail that I think really shows you how bad trust had gotten. Ilya himself said that he didn't confront Sam directly. He thought Sam would simply make the problem disappear before anyone could act on it. That sentence should stop you cold. 2 co-founders 8 years into the company, and one of them doesn't think that he can really bring up something he's concerned about to the other person's face. That's a total trust collapse. So here's something interesting from journalist Karen Howe, who spoke to so many people and spent more than a year researching this book. And she basically says that people see Sam in one of two ways. The 90% of people who stayed at the company saw his behavior as inspired leadership. The people who left saw it as manipulation. It wasn't the behavior itself, it's about how you interpreted it. And that is super important because interpretations vary based on who you are, what you believe, and where you're aligned. So it's too simple to call Sam just a deceptive person or a liar. He is someone whose relationship to the truth is instrumental, okay? He uses the truth to get what he wants. He finds a way to communicate the things that you need to hear. What he says to you is more about what he thinks you need to hear, what's actually 100% factually true. Now, you can see that as being a visionary, being a Steve Jobs figure, speaking boldly about what you want to do in the world, or as dishonest, depending on who you are and what you value. How does a partnership that builds one of the most important companies of all time, I'm just gonna say it, rot from the inside for years before emerging in this very public conflict? So that's where things begin here. I use a lot of different tools in my coaching work, but one of the ones that I've recently come across that I find very helpful is the Enneagram. It helps me understand the wiring, because the wiring is what matters, not just the position, not just who's right about the public surface level argument, but why people feel the way they feel and what are they trying to protect. So the Enneagram is, if you're not familiar, a typing personality model that has 1 through 9 different types. And it doesn't matter to understand all the theory. Just listen to this and see if it makes sense to you. So to me, Sam really comes across as a type 3 achiever. This is the kind of person who wants to be recognized as a winner, being the person who makes the future happen. They're the same type as Whitney Wolf in my previous video. Paul Graham, co-founder of YC, Sam Altman's mentor, said that you could drop him in an island of cannibals and he would come back to find him named king. That is some crazy talk, honestly. And what does that mean? That means that he is just sort of undefeatable. It means that he can enter any kind of exchange, no matter how aggressive, no matter how dangerous or scary the other side is. He's not going to be fazed. He's going to be able to win them over, become their leader, become someone that they value, trust, and respect. People who've worked with Sam Altman describe him as the Michael Jordan of listening because he reads the room. He reads the room and then he figures out what the room wants or needs from him, and he becomes that. And that is very often the case with threes. He uses truth as a tool. It serves a goal. You can read that as sociopathic, but you can also read it as an adaptation. Now, we'll come back to Sam in a minute, but let's talk about Ilya. To me, Ilya looks like a 5. A 5 is the investigator. They care about the truth. They care about understanding. Not winning, not image management, but comprehension, getting to the truth of how something actually works deep down. And so 8 months before the firing, someone even asked him what made him capable of breakthroughs. He was on this podcast and he deflects. He didn't say that he was a genius. He didn't say that he was super brilliant. He said that he tries really hard.
I tried really hard. I gave it everything I got, and that worked so far. I think that's all there is to it.
And that's classic 5. He is introverted. He cares about the work. He wants to understand, not to be seen as exceptional, not to self-aggrandize. But that meant that he saw the truth not as a tool. The truth is the floor he stands on. It is the ground. It is everything. And so you can imagine how using truth as a tool could really set a 5 off. Think about it. You put a 3 and a 5 in a room. The 3 is all about optimizing for the story. The pitchman who doesn't even seem like he's pitching. The other one is all about the truth. And that's what's going on here. The 5 doesn't necessarily fight. He's not assertive in that same way. He's more of a withdrawer. He goes quiet. He decides at some point, I can't trust Sam anymore. I'm going to need to build an airtight case about how to get him out of the company, because frankly, a 52-page memo is the most type 5 way to end a relationship. And this is where we get to that effigy and that burning, because years before the firing at a company retreat, Ilya built a wooden effigy, like a Burning Man kind of statue, and it represented deceptive AI. He was really worried about AI that would become malicious, AI that would trick you, AI that was off the rails. And he really worried about the idea that AI might deceive you, might tell you what you wanted to hear while quietly working towards its own goal. And he said, we have to protect humanity from this. we need to destroy it. So he burned this effigy. And he said it was OpenAI's duty to destroy that monster. Okay, so you know the wiring, you know what broke it. Here's where I actually do my job. I'm gonna walk you through the interventions I would have run with these two, and then I'm gonna give you my honest verdict about whether or not I could have actually saved the situation. If Ilya and Sam had hired me, I wouldn't have gotten into the weeds about safety. I'm here to work on the relationship. The first intervention I would do is called Find the Dream Inside the Conflict. This is straight out of the Gottman Institute, and they found that most gridlock fights aren't really about the surface issue, because underneath every rigid position is actually a dream that a person is protecting, a need. Talked a bit about the 3's needs versus the 5's needs, but you can't resolve a position until you've honored that detailed, emotional, personal dream that each person has. To Sam, I would say, forget about the strategy for a second. What do you want this company to be about? Why is this important to you? Who do you want to be because you created OpenAI? And I think if he's being honest, he wants to be the one who builds the future. He wants to be in control of the technology that is going to change the world. He wants to matter at the scale of history. That is what he said in his own essays. You should aim to do something every time you change your career or do something new. You want to make the last thing you did look like a footnote. And so then I would ask the same question to Ilya. What do you want this to be about? And I think that he's gonna say that he wants to really understand this fundamental breakthrough in technology that is changing the world. He wants to understand it, and he wants to be able to make sure that it serves humanity, that it actually does things that are going to be good for the world and not be complicit in something that is catastrophic. And look, this does not contradict each other. Both people, I think, need humanity to live on, to succeed, for their dreams to come true. And my job isn't to adjudicate whether or not this is the right pace or the right strategy or this is the right policy, but it is about getting each other to hear the other person's dream and to acknowledge it as legit, as real, as something that they can understand and empathize with without surrendering their own dream. That is the shift from gridlock to dialogue. Now, if you've got a co-founder, I want you to think about this for a second. Do you understand the dream underneath their most annoying position or their most annoying decision? Not the arguments for what they're saying, but the thing that matters to them on the inside. And a lot of founders might have a surface level understanding, but they dismiss it. They don't know where it's coming from. They don't know what this is about. And that makes all of this harder. Meanwhile, let's go to intervention number 2. I call this old wounds, old ways. Nobody in a co-founder fight is the villain. Everybody is running a survival strategy. Everyone is acting on old patterns that they had established long before they got into this company. Sam is a doomsday prepper. He's got bunkers. He's got cash straps of gold. He's got, a plan to escape to New Zealand. And he's talked about this missing circuit in his brain, the one where he cares about what people think. Now, this is different from Whitney. They're both 3s. Whitney cares a lot about what people think. Sam maybe doesn't care about what people think in the moment or judgments about him, but he does want to be recognized in the long run. But he's okay with people thinking that maybe he's deceptive. Somewhere in his life, Sam learned that managing the narrative and being the one who wins is what keeps him safe. Bending the truth is protection. It is a way of making sure that he gets what he needs, and it got built so early, it got worn so long, his armor, that he probably doesn't feel it anymore. Meanwhile, Ilya was in love with computers at age 5. He was an immigrant. He lived in 3 countries, built his whole identity around seeing what is real, seeing reality accurately. And so this is personal because according to Howe's reporting in Empire of AI, by the end, Ilya didn't just think that Sam was reckless, he felt tricked, manipulated into pouring the best years of his mind into something that he didn't believe in. That's not just a business disagreement, that is theft. The theft of the one resource he can never get back, his own focus, his own genius, being pointed at something that he doesn't believe in that maybe is actually creating what he most feared in the world. And so when each of you sees where you're coming from, why this thing matters so much to you, things start to shift because Sam's deception stops looking like contempt and starts looking like a scared little boy's reflex to protect himself. Ilya's vendetta stops looking like power grab. Ilya had not thought this through. Like, what happens after Sam gets fired? They're just gonna hire a new CEO? I mean, it didn't seem like Ilya wanted to be CEO. So it was very chaotic because, and when you think about that, that suggests that it's not manipulation, but more hurt, more pain, more disappointment. And he wanted something to change and he didn't know how to get there and he didn't know how to talk about it, which is really sad. So do I think I could have saved it? My honest answer is either 50-50 or no way. If we go back to like 2018, 2019, long before ChatGPT emerges, maybe there was a chance that we could have gotten the three of them into a room, three of them into a conversation. Maybe during the transition from nonprofit to for-profit, they could have had, and I'm sure they did, had some hard conversations about what this was going to do for the company. But by 2021, certainly by 2022, by the time ChatGPT comes out, these patterns were ingrained. This was already kind of locked in a bad way. And I really do think that everybody in the situation was too ingrained. There was too much money at stake. This had become a runaway train, and there was not a lot that could be done to stop it. In a lot of ways, we can see that Sam is just relentless. He's irrepressible. I don't know if I could have gotten through to Sam either. I don't know if maybe his reality distortion field could have worked on me. No matter whether you have a 3 and a 5 or a 3 and an 8 or any kind of combination, people have to care about the relationship more than they care about the outcome. The 3 is going to tell you what you want to hear. The 5 is going to analyze everything and try to break it down. Trying to get two people to be vulnerable and to share what they really care about and what they want, that takes guts, and that takes a desire to repair. And I'm just not sure that they had it in them to go there. But back to you, before you close this, if you were a founder or if you are working in a situation where you've got someone that you're trying to resolve conflict with, is there a conversation that you've been kind of skirting around instead of having directly? Because Sam and Ilya had every resource in the world. They had capital, they had talent, they had a world-changing mission, but they clearly did not have honest conversations. And maybe you're okay with the equivalent of the board firing you and then rehiring you within 72 hours. But trust me, that took years off of Sam's life. It damaged the credibility of OpenAI. It damaged the faith and trust and motivation that people had within the company. There was a lot lost in that moment, even if Sam ultimately got his way, because conflict can be repaired, but silence just sits there until it blows over into something that you can't take back.